It's the Blue Vote Cafe, a little bit of wonkish, a whole lot of fun. I'm David Schellenberg along with Rachel Oyster. We're the co-chairs for Democrats Abroad in Canada's capital region of Ottawa. Hello, Rachel.
Hello, David. How are you today?
I am excellent. I had an interesting conversation earlier this morning with Grits Abroad.
Grits Abroad. Oh, we better explain what grits are. And they're not the kind you eat, which I adore.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the Liberal Party of Canada. And talking to a guy who's in Hong Kong. And the interesting thing so same sort of thing as Democrats Abroad. So in this case, it's Canadians living outside the so you say that. Canadians living outside of Canada. Who have the ability to vote in elections. And one of the things he was telling me is even though the United States is 10 times as large as Canada, the guess
terms
is
of population.
Not
land mass.
No, fair enough. The estimate is for the United States, in an article he wrote for a newspaper, there are 4 million Americans living outside the United States who have the ability to vote. And Canada also has 4 million Canadians living outside of the country who have the ability
fascinating.
to vote.
Wow. Although 4 is a lower estimate than some I've heard for Americans living outside the country. Sometimes you hear as high as 9, but of course we don't know. It's impossible to count. Not everybody is tracked and trackable, at least not yet.
No, and it's interesting. And so all to say, if anybody out there
is a Canadian
is interested, because Grits Abroad is fairly new, where Democrats Abroad has been around for quite a while.
We need to connect the two two organizations.
Yep,
Might
and
have
has a
some
little
things to
bit
say
of
to each other.
Advice to get things up and running. He's
awesome.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody around the world wants to go for a beer with a Canadian in some corner. I know the people.
That's awesome.
All right, who's with us today?
I was going to ask how you connected, but that sounds like a longer conversation. Maybe we'll have him on the pod.
It's a longer conversation. Oh, that's a great idea. We should have him on.
Grits Abroad meet Democrats Abroad.
Yes, exactly. We'll all work together.
Not to stymie our momentum here, who we have with us today. Today, we're joined in the cafe by Paula Lucas, who founded an organization called Pathways to Safety International. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you so much, Rachel and David, for having me today.
We're delighted to talk to you. We're very interested to hear more about the organization. But first, we'd like to know where you are. I don't know if you are where you live. I have a sense that you're actually traveling. But we'd like to know where our guests are and where they live and why they're there and what state they vote out of.
Okay, so I'm currently in Aix-en-Provence in the south of France.
Right.
It's a combination of a personal trip and also for work to do outreach and education to some of the American groups in France, and then I'm also going to Morocco and then to Egypt. But usually I live in Oregon, and I vote out of Oregon.
Got it. Wow. Okay, that's wonderful. And how's the weather in France?
Yeah.
It's been really hot. I mean, I arrived in Paris on July 2nd, and it was 105 degrees.
Oh, goodness. And that's really hot for that part of the world, eh? Like they're not used to it at all.
No, but it's down into the 90s now.
Right.
Oh, that's sounds much cooler.
and are you enjoying any wine, any cheese, any baguettes while you're there?
I am. Absolutely, yes. Every town I go to, I find my favorite baguette place and my favorite wine shop. Yeah, it's really been. I've had a wonderful time so far.
Oh, that's fantastic. But it's work that took you there. So tell us about Pathways to Safety International. What is it? And how did you begin it?
Okay, well, I'll start at the beginning. I grew up in California. And out of college, I got a job and I moved to San Francisco. And I met a man there who had been a Newsweek photojournalist. Mm-hmm. British boarding school education, spoke 3 languages. I was kind of a California farm girl. I mean, I was 24, but I think, back in 1983, different than 24-year-olds today, perhaps. He kind of just swept me off my feet. He was a Palestinian refugee that traveled on a Lebanese travel document. And we were in the U.S. for 2 years. We're living in the UK for 2 years, and then in the United Arab Emirates for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And, when I first moved abroad, my parents, unfortunately, had already passed away, but I'd had this older brother that was very concerned. And he said, Paula, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm American. I can always come home. And I just had this perception that it didn't matter where I was in the world. I was going to go to the embassy and they were going to put me on a plane and send me home.
Right.
But I found out that the reality was completely different. I had three sons while I lived there in the United Arab Emirates with him, and the abuse got worse and worse and worse every year, and I won't go into it too much. Um,
Wow.
but it came to a point where I didn't think I was going to make it out alive.
Oh, my.
And
Wow.
I went to the American embassy and they said, if we help you, we will create an international incident, which was
Oh
fine
my.
with me.
Right. Go ahead.
International
Do it.
incident.
Do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I did manage. I managed to escape on my own. I broke multiple laws leaving. My children were 4, 6, and 8 years old.
Oh no.
I forged a check with his name on it and took money. And I forged documents giving me permission to leave the country with
And you
my
took your
children.
children.
And I took my children.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So came back to the U.S. Fled to Oregon to live with my sister. And thought, I'm American. My kids are only American because, there's no Palestinian state. So they weren't even dual
Ah,
nationality.
right.
And then he came to the US. He stalked me. He found me summer of 1999. I was
Oh,
homeless, 40 years old with three little kids,
oh my God.
and thought, well, how is this possible? I had no rights, in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, but he can come to Oregon and he can have rights to see the kids and fight me for custody. So we fought a year and a half in the courts, uh,
Wow.
and Oregon gave me jurisdiction to keep the children in Oregon. So what happens when you flee from one country to another? The left behind parent, and in the case of the victims of myself and the victims we help, has the right to try to force the children back to their place of habitual residence.
Oh
And it
boy.
doesn't matter what your nationality is. It's that they're saying that custody has to be determined where the children live.
Wow.
Tried to force me to take the children back. A judge in Oregon gave me jurisdiction and said no, I could keep the children in Oregon. And then he continued to fight for custody after that. And then eventually the judge gave me full legal and physical custody and just gave him supervised visitation.
Hmm.
So during this time, well, actually, before I left, I made this promise to God or spirit or whatever people like to think of as a higher power. Just get me out of here and I'll help other people. I swear it was this, my Hail Mary, just let me get out of here safely.
Hmm.
And so that's what I did. I was living in shelter and I decided to start this program, and everybody said, you're homeless. You have three kids. What do you want to do?
What are you thinking? Yeah.
Exactly. What are you thinking? So I, did that. I went into a 1-year program for women who are made homeless due to domestic violence. And that's what I worked on. I worked another job and in my spare time worked on getting this nonprofit going. And so the first 10 years, it was really just a grassroots effort. I was trying to raise money, trying to raise awareness of what I was doing. And we were helping a handful of victims a year, like maybe 20 or 30 victims a
Uh-huh.
year, myself and some volunteers.
Uh-huh.
And then in 2007, I was given money from the Oak Foundation of Switzerland, and I was able to actually hire some staff. And so
Wow.
we started hiring staff, and then we trained volunteers, and we started a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, international toll-free crisis line and crisis email. And we plugged along with that. We are able to provide some airline flights. Somebody strategically sat me next to Richard Branson at a dinner in New York. Yeah, so
Bless
that,
their heart.
yeah, exactly. So we had free airline flights for many years
Oh,
from
wow.
Ah,
Atlantic Airlines. Yeah, that was wonderful. And finally, in 2009, I met with Department of Justice Officer Victims of Crime, and I explained to them what I was doing. And they said, well, why are you going to Switzerland for money? I said, because I can't get federal government funding. And they said, we're going to change that. So
Ah,
under the Obama administration, they started a Vision 21 program, and they started a funding stream for American victims of domestic violence abroad and American victims of sexual assault abroad.
wow.
We received federal government funding for 10 years, and that really ramped up our ability to serve American victims abroad. We were serving about 1,000 families a year,
My.
mostly domestic violence, but also some sexual assault, some sex trafficking, and some
Oh
forced
my.
marriage. And we
Wow.
were able to provide, airline flights, counseling, legal services, and we had, we were flying to different countries, meeting with American embassies, doing a lot of partnerships with American embassies. When the Trump administration came in 2017, they immediately defunded our sexual assault program. And then in 2019, when our 5-year grant was up, that grant wasn't renewed. So in
Mm.
2019, basically everything collapsed.
Oh boy.
So I kept one part-time employee and we kept doing the crisis email. And I was exhausted. I've been doing it for 20 years. I was so
Yeah.
tired. And I said, I'm going to take a year off and let me just, regroup. Went to India for a while. I had to kind of rest and recover from this. And then, I told my board, we'll start up again in the beginning of 2020. Well, we all know what happened at the beginning of 2020
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. So we couldn't gain any traction to have federal funding again, even under the Biden administration. There was just sort of a sense that there was a limited amount of money, and we were trying to get these federal grants reinstated for American victims in foreign countries, and just couldn't get anywhere.
Mm.
But recently, I there were some grants that came out from OVC, and it's specifically to serve American citizens, American citizen victims of crime.
Hmm.
So I did email them and say, well, what about American victims of crime, like domestic violence in foreign countries? And they said, yes, you can apply for the grant. So that's the first time we've had an opportunity to apply for a federal grant that we may be eligible for since, 2019.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I do. Still.
Um, right. Wow. So that grant, it sounds like it will be decided in the future. You are applying or you have applied and you're waiting to hear.
I'm writing it right now.
Writing it now.
It's due
Okay.
on the 15th of August, I think, and then we would find out in October. It is competitive, so we're competing with all agencies in the United States who serve American victims of crime in the US also. And
Right.
so I don't know what our chances are of getting the grants, but we are hopeful that we can get some kind of a substantial funding stream reestablished because the population's huge. And I know you were talking earlier that, some people say there's 5 million Americans abroad and some say it's 9 million Americans abroad, but that still means tens of thousands of victims a year on a global scale.
For sure. And you must have had some sense in the responses you got when you founded the organization of how many people you were able to help, but also probably a sense that there were more than you could actually take care of.
Yes, there's much the need is much, much more. And the difficulty of getting out of foreign countries, people think, oh, the Middle East, it's hard to get out. Yes, but it's hard to get out of any country if you have children, especially if those children are, even if they're American citizens, if they're dual nationality, that gives the abusive partner more power. And I do want to say, we help mostly women and children, but we have several American men who are victims of domestic violence abroad or sexual assault abroad. Is
Right.
So it's not just strictly American women and children.
Right.
Right. Wow. So for fun, yeah. Oh, go ahead, David.
Well,
Heard
I
you.
was just sort of thinking beyond that, getting them out of whatever part of the world they're in. Once they arrive in the United States, does your work continue?
Yes. So the big challenge we have is that get once you get them back into the United States, well, they're homeless
Yeah.
most of the time
Hmm.
because it's not safe for them to go back to their family of origin because the abuser knows where that family.
Ah,
Shelters in the United States are already overloaded and they will not take the people that we serve. So that becomes a big problem because even if you spend 6 to 9 months, safety planning, going to the embassy, getting passports reissued, getting all these things ready, getting them on the plane, and then they land, well, then you've got a whole new problem.
Yep.
What are we going to do with these victims?
why won't the shelters take them?
So shelters, the funding has become so restricted that they have to take residents. They can only take victims who are residents of the state that they're in. They
Ah,
had to have been living in that state for 6 months. Now that's different than it used to be. It didn't when I escaped, 26 years ago now, that wasn't like that. I did go into shelters and I didn't have any problem. But the funding is so restricted now.
I
So
see.
that's
Wow.
really challenging.
Wow.
Yes, and then you have the legal issues of the jurisdiction of the children, and if they come from, are you familiar with the Hague Convention on International Child Abduction?
In general terms, yes, but not
Yeah, I'm not.
maybe share some specifics.
So the Hague Convention was created in the early 1980s, and they said, okay, there are non-custodial fathers taking children away from the custodial mothers and taking them to foreign countries. So we need to have a treaty that says if this happens, there is a legal framework to return those children back to their place of habitual residence and back to the foreign country. But they never considered domestic violence as a factor in fleeing a foreign country, and they never considered that it was the primary caretaker that was
Hmm.
staying with the children. So if an American mother flees with her children back to the US, then the left behind parent, in the case of the people we help, the abuser can file a petition under the Hague Convention for wrongful removal of the children. She has to defend that in a court, and there are defenses to the Hague, but she still
Hmm.
has to defend it. And if unless you have an attorney that's willing to do that pro bono, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars to
Hmm.
defend a Hague petition and not have to return those children to the foreign country. Now,
Wow.
if you escape countries like the Middle East and Africa, there isn't the Hague Convention. So getting out may be harder, but once you get into the United States, there isn't that legal framework to have to return the child back to the foreign country.
Oh, wow.
They could still use the UCCJEA, which is a state law, Uniform Child Custody and Jurisdiction Enforcement Act, and they will treat that foreign country as if it's a state in the United States. But as long as, we work with the victims to make sure they have the evidence of domestic violence, that they, as much as they can, so when they come here, they can do a defense of grave harm to the child if they were to return. So it becomes very difficult because you're landing back in your home country with no place to live, with possibly facing tens of thousands of dollars worth of legal fees.
Hmm.
So it's almost if you're on your own, it's almost an impossible task.
Wow. So your organization provides not just the guidance for what they have to document, the help getting out of the country, the help finding shelter, and also some legal support when they require it.
Yes. So there's another organization that just recently received a grant from the Office for Violence Against Women that is specifically to find legal representation for battered American mothers who flee foreign countries and return back to the US. So
Mm-hmm.
we have partnered with, I don't know, dozens of cases with them in the last, I think it started about a year ago, about 10
Wow.
years ago. Um, so that's a huge help. And they're trying to build a legal network. But that's only for Hague cases, not for the non-Hague cases. But
Right.
the majority are Hague cases that we handle.
Interesting. So if I mean, let's hope that grant comes through. If it doesn't, what next? Do you also accept donations? Is that the route that you have to turn to? I mean, obviously this is a vitally important thing that we don't want to just fold. How do we keep it going?
Well, we rely on individual donations. I haven't had the bandwidth to write a lot of grants. I'm doing a lot of the direct service myself with one other gal. And so and we can't provide the full services like we used to because we just don't have the finances. But we do accept donations. And that's really since, 2019, since we had to shut down the full operation, we've survived on just individual donations.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I'm trying to get a sense of how big the organization is now. Like, do you have a fair amount of full-time staff to work on all this?
Oh no, we have myself and another. I work on it part-time. Well, I work about 25 hours a week,
Yeah.
and then my other person works about 10 hours a week.
Oh my.
But
Okay.
most of it's volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't have, the idea is just to keep, 100, we're serving 100 a year instead of 1,000 a year. So that just shows you the scope of how much we've had to really
Collapse.
minimize what we're doing. And, we used to be able to help pay for airline flights, but now they have to get repatriation loans. So that's another thing. They get the repatriation loan to come home, and now they've got to pay a loan back on top of facing legal fees, on top of
Oh,
having a place to live. So in the grant that we're writing right now for the federal government, we have put money in there so when they land, we can, rent an apartment for them for a month or something so that they do have a place to land while we get them connected to other services in the United States. So yes, it is. We barely survive, but I think that it's this. I had three children, and this was my fourth. This was my fourth.
I hope
So
your son's appreciated as your
yeah,
sibling.
the other three are self-sufficient and on their own, and I need to see this become self-sufficient and on its own. And I think I'm
Oh,
trying to see it through to that point.
absolutely. Well, I hope the grant would give you some sustained funding, not just like 1 year's worth of operations.
It would be for 3 years, but I could hire somebody full-time. I could hire a full-time case manager again and have some overhead and then be able to also have a victim assistance fund, which
And
is
maybe a
better
grant writer, I was going to say.
have a little bit better than what we have now. But that could then free my time up to do more grant writing and to do more fundraising.
Right. I'm sort of curious about some of the stories. Are there stories you can share, whether heartbreaking or heartwarming?
Oh boy, I've got a lot of those stories. Oh my goodness. I think we've had some really good successes. We
Hmm.
had this one family, we got out of a Middle Eastern country, and she had three children, and we were able to get her out and get her to the United States and see it all the way through. And she was able to stay in the US with her children, and that was very, very successful. We had another one out of, then I think Armenia that was
Hmm.
very, very successful. That went to a full pro bono um, defense by Perkins and Cooley in Seattle to defend a Hague petition.
Nice.
And
Wow.
I think their pro bono, if they had charged us, it would have been $200,000.
Oh wow.
Wow. Boy, that's a
And
lot of
she was
money.
successfully able to stay in the country. And we've had clients killed,
Oh, no.
the whole spectrum.
Oh,
We've
my
had some
God.
clients where we have been working on helping them get out, and we always try to safety plan. We do a lot of technology safety and strategy on how not to let, because abusers are pretty good. They can sense things, and when a woman is leaving an abusive situation, that is the most dangerous time. That's when you see the headlines that, women and children were killed because the abuser, as he's losing more control, what is the ultimate control over another
Right.
human being is to take their life.
Right.
So really trying to strategize with them around staying safe while they're escaping. And we've had two two clients killed in
My
26
God.
years, which is, I guess, it's not bad. I think all agencies face this at one time or another.
Right. So how did you learn what you have? You have a huge body of knowledge. How did you gain
Yeah.
that?
It was, honestly, Rachel, it was baptism by fire. I had no idea what I was doing when I started this. I
Yeah.
just had a vision and I was just driven. It was like it had to be done. And one of the things when I speak to the field, and a lot of the times the feedback is, well, there's not enough money to serve Americans abroad. We need to serve Americans in the United States. I'm like, but they're the same people. Just because
Right.
they have physically stepped off the USA and they're in a foreign country doesn't make them a different population. It's the
Right.
same population. So shouldn't we have inequality of services for Americans, no matter where they are in the world? Because
Right.
if let's say somebody's being sexually assaulted in Mexico and they call an agency in Seattle. Seattle can't use federal government funding to help them until they come back to Seattle, but they don't need the services while they're in Seattle. They need the services while they're in Mexico.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So this has been an argument I have had for 26 years.
Oh dear.
My. And I'm
Yeah.
still a bit mystified why embassies can't do more to help. Like,
Yeah.
isn't that kind of why embassies exist?
Embassies exist to help American citizens, but they're not social services. So if you have a passport stolen, they can reissue a passport. If you need money sent by your family, they can help you organize that. If when it comes to things like, well, there's an American woman and she's married to a French national in Brazil,
Right. Right.
and she has children,
Yeah.
and now she wants to leave and flee back to the United States. It's really messy. And I think the embassy, you've got the diplomatic relations with the foreign countries. You've got the laws of the foreign countries
Mm.
around custody and around, divorce and all of these things. And the embassies just really they don't have the expertise to be
No.
able to listen. Honestly, I don't think they should be. I think you really, when it comes to things like this, what you're asking is a victim of violence to go and tell the government that you're being abused. And
Mm.
that's not really victim centered because victims might not want the federal government to know that they're being abused. Just like it would be as if in the United States, instead of a victim reaching out to the social services like domestic violence or sexual assault services, they're told you need to go and tell your local government that you're being
Right.
abused.
Call by law.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. So we don't expect government officials in the United States to help victims, but we expect them to help the victims when they're in foreign countries.
But that is kind of the expectation you have when you travel. Exactly as you said at the beginning. You thought there you are an American and you got your passport. All you need to do if you get in trouble is go to the embassy. We're told that, in fact.
You are told that, but you're not told that if your children are American citizens and the abuser hides their American passports, the American embassy won't issue passports to
Ah,
minor
yeah.
American children without the approval of both parents,
Wow.
except if you can prove potential grave harm to the child, which is
Hmm.
extremely hard to prove. It's very complicated. So it really, in a way, for victim services, it is better for the embassies to refer to us. Plus, we can do things that the embassies can't.
Right.
The embassies will get in trouble for it. We don't get in trouble for it.
Hmm. Wow.
I know it's a lot. It's a lot. And thank you for
Yeah.
talking to me about it because people always don't want to hear about it, but it's true. It happens in the United States. It happens in every country.
Of
And it's
course it
not that
does.
it's happening more in foreign countries. It's just that when you're in a foreign country, the obstacles of getting out. I mean, in the United States, you have to get out of your house and you have to get into a shelter,
Yeah.
and then you can access services. Well, if you're in the foreign country, you've got to get out of the country, you've got to get on a plane, you've got to get into the United States, and then you have a hard time even accessing services in the United States.
So, a lot of our focus in the conversation, I think, because of the reasons you set it up, and probably because of the majority of people you serve, has been domestic violence. But you also help people who are sexually assaulted. So, what would
Yeah.
somebody, yeah, who's like in Rio and doesn't know not to walk on the streets,
Yeah.
Yes. So we
what would you
actually
do for them?
So we had created a database of 100 different countries profile sexual assault profiles for 100 different countries.
Wow.
They were called Know Before You Go, and we had those available. So
Wow.
if somebody on our website. So if somebody was going to a foreign country, they could read that and they could see what to be cautious of, what resources are available if you are sexually assaulted in the foreign countries. So we did have that, and that we had a lot of universities using that,
Mm, yeah.
a lot of study abroad, and then just, people traveling abroad. We haven't updated those, since we shut down and, shut down most of the services in 2019. But what we're seeing now is younger American women meeting men on dating apps
Oh, right.
and going abroad, and that they're being pretty smart about it. So what we have found is that they'll meet somebody online and they'll have them come to the United States first.
Ah.
The person comes to the US, he meets them, they hang out, do whatever for a week, and then everything's wonderful. And then, so the next trip is the American woman flies to the foreign country. Well,
Hmm.
then it could be just what you would consider dating violence, where you're dating
Yeah.
the person becomes very violent, or, sexual assault or sex trafficking. And we had a couple of cases like this where it was actually a sex trafficker. And when the American woman got to the foreign country, then she was sex trafficked.
Oh
Right.
my God.
Yeah. And then we just recently had one where she was in the UK and the trafficker was trying to take her to Turkey.
Oh
Which
boy.
we said, okay, we've got to help her before this. And we were working with the mother and the grandmother. And we was like, no, because if she gets taken to Turkey, then it's game over, really. But we were able to work with the embassy and work with local law enforcement, and she was rescued by police there in the UK.
Wow.
It's the world is kind of dangerous. I mean, 99% of the time, probably everything's fine, but it's the 1% that's absolutely devastating.
Right.
Absolutely.
How do these victims find you? They're just going online and Googling, or how do they know you exist?
Well, we've been around for 26 years.
Yeah.
If you do Google, American abused abroad, we come up, usually we should be coming up first. Um, but we're more known for domestic violence because even when we had the federal funding for that 10 years, we had 10 years of federal funding for domestic violence, but only 3 years for sexual assault
Mm, mm,
before that was defunded.
right.
So I think and we've done a lot of outreach. In the earlier years, like when we had the airline flights from Virgin Atlantic, and we had federal government funding, and we were able to do a lot of outreach and a lot of collaboration with American expatriate groups like Federation of American Women's Clubs and ACA and Arrow, and then more recently Democrats Abroad
Right.
has been getting involved in helping, raise awareness of the services that we provide. So yeah, I think it is mostly online. And at one time we were on the state.gov, travel.state.gov website.
Ah.
No longer on there, but some individual embassies still have us listed as a resource.
Yeah, I was going to say
No.
developing relationships with the embassies would make sense too, because then they
Mhm.
would know you exist and they can reach out to you when they can't help.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
we had really good working relationship when we had federal government funding because we
sure.
were working every day with dozens of victims with different embassies around the world, but now we haven't really operated other than a crisis email for 6 years. So
Right.
embassy staff move and people
Turnover. Yeah.
place. And so we are hoping if we can get this grant and I can hire someone full time to do all the crisis work, then I can go back and do more outreach and education and get more of those, reestablish those really important relationships.
Well, we all have to beam out hope into the universe that you get the grant.
Yes, I hope so.
Or some
I
good
have
donors.
Yes, either one
and
or
good
both.
donors.
And good donors. Okay, excellent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that if we can get a base of federal funding again, then that draws in other bigger donors. Because right now it's like, well, we used to help 1,000 families a year with $1 million a year, and now we're helping 100 families a year with, $50,000 a
Oh,
year.
wow.
And but not being able to provide the depth and breadth of services that we did
No.
before. So
But you
it is.
can show that your cost per victim it has gone down.
Yeah, it has gone down, and it really wasn't much to begin with. I mean,
Yeah.
$1
No.
million a year, and you're serving 1,000 families. That's $1,000 a family, which is nothing when you're talking about the services that we were providing in terms of, legal and airline flights and
Absolutely.
counseling and all of those things. So it's yeah, it's been my life work. It's my heart work, really. I just every time I think of doing something else, I just keep, getting drawn back to this. And my
Right.
sons, which are now they're adults now, they keep saying, "Mom, just retire." Can't do that yet. I just not there yet.
But
Um,
I think, yeah. I mean, clearly you have fulfilled your original promise and continuing to help is amazing, but what
yeah.
you've accomplished is incredible.
I did write a book about it in
Oh,
2013. Yeah, my two of my sons went to see their biological father, which I wasn't very happy about.
No.
They were adults, and I understand that, if you are severely abused by your father as a child, and then you become an adult, and then you start wondering, was it really that bad? Is he really
hmm
that bad?
hmm
So my two older boys went to Europe. My younger one was 17, and I told him, "You're not leaving."
Right.
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 And they met him, and that's a whole nother story. But
Wow.
yeah, they ended up coming back, and they said he'd remarried and had had two daughters, which we weren't aware of. And they came back and they said, "Mom, it was like watching what we went through, but it was watching other people
Other
and
people being their half
being,
sisters.
being abused
Oh
by
no.
him." And then his wife at the time, I don't know if she's still with him or not, got on the phone with me and begged me for help.
Wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
it had come full circle. And
Unbelievable.
we did try to help her, but she wasn't American, and he had her pretty locked in where she was. And so what the State Department had told me was that if we can get her to the United States, then she can claim asylum,
hmm
as she's being abused by at that. So the boy's father had become an American citizen while married to me. So she could have if we could have gotten her to the United States, then she could have claimed asylum because she was being abused by an American in a foreign country. But we just had no way of getting her out.
Oh
Uh,
no.
so yeah,
Heartbreaking. What's
it
the
is.
book called and where can people get it? That sounds like something people might like to read.
Yeah, it's called Harvesting Stones, An American Woman's International Journey of Survival. And it's the play on, in the Middle East, you can get stoned to death.
Oh yeah.
At one point in time, I was speaking with we had an advertising, marketing, and PR firm there, and the employees could see what was going on. And at one point in time, one of the employees looked at me and said, "He's stoning you to death. He's just doing it one stone at a time."
Oh my God.
And so it was harvesting stones. It was about taking all those stones he'd thrown at me and building something to help other people. Yeah, it's on, I think it's on Amazon. What's Amazon Prime? I think it's still on there. And
Okay.
yeah, I think it's a Kindle too. It's been so
Mm,
long since I wrote it in 2013. So
right.
so long since I've thought about it, actually. It ended up really just being a big business card for the nonprofit. And, I got a lot of individual donors from that book to the
Wow.
organization. So that was
Wow.
very, very beneficial for the organization.
Amazing.
It
Wow.
also became victims in foreign countries would read it, and I would get the feedback. They said it was like a how to escape a foreign country book.
Right.
Amazing.
which I don't want people to do because every country is different, everybody's situation is different, and what worked for me might not work for somebody else.
Right.
Right. And times are different too. As you were saying, some of the things that worked for you no longer are available to people.
Correct. And it's also, back I escaped in 99. So now a lot of countries you can't even leave without a letter or permission from the other parent. So it becomes even harder to get out of a foreign country. And a lot there's like I think Australia is one of them. There's so many countries. I can't remember them all off the top of
Well,
my head.
even when everything's going, perfectly well, when my younger son was born, we wanted to take him down to Philadelphia to meet the grandparents, but Ontario was so slow at the time with the birth certificates. I had nothing proving that this little tiny baby was mine. So I actually said to the pediatrician, "Can you just type out something saying, this is my baby?" Truly, I did this, and I put it in my passport because I had nothing. Because you don't know when you cross the border that what's going to be asked of you. And nobody blinked an eye, but but if somebody had said, "Is that your baby?" I couldn't have proven it without that note from the pediatrician, which he wrote on a prescription pad.
Well, you probably wouldn't get away with that today.
No, this was a while ago. But yeah, amazing. Well, Paula, is there anything else that we haven't asked you that you would like to share? This has
Yeah,
been,
but I'm trying to think. I think I've covered most of it.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's probably about it.
it's
There's
an
a lot
incredible
in there.
There's a lot in there. Unless you
It's like you're going to
have
break
any
my
other-
heart even more if you
Yeah,
got
I
something
know,
more.
and so many more questions to ask you, and so many stories to hear. But you've given us a great overview, and thank you so much for the 26 years you spent doing this amazing work.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me and letting me talk about it. I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely, and best of luck with the grant, and please let us know when it comes through. We'd love to hear
And what we can do to help.
and what we can do to help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you live outside the U.S., please register with your voting state at votefromabroad.org every year. Do it now. To find all our episodes, go to democratsabroad.org and look for us in the drop-down menu. I'm Rachel Oikster with David Schellenberg in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for listening to Democrats Abroad, the Blue Vote Cafe.